one thing about signage is it's all dependent on colors. And even there is a science to it. There are certain blues and greens and things like that when lit up at night, the human eye, for some reason, just cannot see it as well at night as you can a red or a white. So you have to break that up with a, like a white border or something like that, that really only a signage expert would know, where a customer is just like, oh, I want this to be there. And you do try to educate them as much as you can about what can clash, because the one thing that is a nightmare for any sign professional is when you put up a great looking sign that you permitted, you think looks awesome, and then the customer just says, I'm not excited about it.
Hi everyone, it's Amy Valdivia, and we are the Just Ask Upland Podcast as we celebrate the Upland Chamber of Commerce membership. Today, we are showcasing why we are the best chamber in the Inland Valley. That's right, voted the best chamber in the Inland Valley. And who do we have here with us today? The quiet giant, David Lamb from Signarama. Yay! Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm excited about it.
Good. Well, let's just jump right on into this. Tell me, who are you, and why did you come to the chamber with Signarama?
Yes. Well, basically we had started Signarama in 2010 as a family-run business. My dad and my brother started it. I was in a transition in employment, and joined them about 3 months after our opening of the shop. I had always been a management and sales management position, and so when I had that little bit of time, and it was 2010, so just coming out of the recession, really wanted to help the family business, and was really only expecting to be there for a few months, and got completely wrangled in, and had to use the power trip and kind of get up there and kind of head-to-head with my father at times in the beginning, but eventually got him to where I believe he wanted to be, which is in retirement. So that's where we're at right now.
Very nice. But you were not an entrepreneur before.
No, I was always in basically in sales. I even was with X1039, which is an old alternative rock radio station. I was sales with them. Did a lot of residential and commercial moving and storage sales for basically all the big brands, Beacons, United Van Lines, Allied, and was basically either going into people's homes, doing their residential moving and storage, and then graduated into commercial, what they call O&I, office and industrial moving, which is basically moving people's businesses. And that's where, thankfully, working in that corporate side, I got a lot of formal sales training, the Dale Carnegie stuff, and so really have to still thank them for a lot of that formal training that I got on the sales side of things.
It's amazing what some of those principles can do for your business and your personal life, which I don't want to get away from any of that just yet.
Sure.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up here in Upland.
Really?
I was born at the Kaiser in Fontana. And my parents' first house was down in Ontario off of San Antonio and Berkeley Court, and then moved up to 17th and 2nd when I was about 4 or 5 years old. Mom was heavily Catholic, so went to Damien instead of Upland High School, but went to Sierra Vista, Pioneer Junior High. And so I'd say I was, other than being born, definitely raised in Upland.
She's a good mama.
Yes.
I sent my son to Damien as well,
Oh,
so
did
it's
you?
good school. What year did you graduate?
2000.
Okay.
So a true millennial.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so take me back. Graduation, Damien,
Yes.
and it was about the brotherhood. And you decide to go to college or to the military?
Well, at that time I did decide, because I was still uneven, and so I did do a semester at Mount Sac, and then right after that I actually saw several of my friends graduate from the Marine Corps, and it totally motivated me. It got me in. I was like, okay, I'll go in there. I did the ASVAB just to see where I would qualify for, and scored really high on it, and was able to get an MOS of 0231, which is basically a field intelligence. And that's where I know that we had talked about kind of the speaking. Even the military taught us how to do PowerPoint speaking, because our main job as an intel Marine was to gain enemy, basically intel on the enemy, and let commanders know about it. So that was my first kind of introduction into being a very young person and needing to give very important information to majors, colonels, sometimes even generals once I got a few more years into there. And that's where got some of that formal PowerPoint presentation type training.
Presentation is key.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, now fast forward to you're an entrepreneur. You jump into business with Dad and you think, oh, I'm going to be there just for a short period of time. You've done sales, so you understand the concept of presentation and being out there and speaking appropriately to potential clients. Now what do you tell your dad? Tell me how that conversation went.
When I told about going out into sales, well, it was always very like, you are going to do the sales, but in the very beginning, it was only us three. And so I was doing installations and sales. About 5 years in, when we started getting our own installers, where I was then getting into sales and more on that management side, where I guess you could say there was a little bit of times of differences in opinion of where we should be going.
Right.
And so that was where I've got to thank my dad, is that, for a lot of times it was very helpful and supportive in terms of where we were going, and he supported me in those decisions. And then he started taking longer and longer times off, and during those times we were realizing that, our revenue is going even. So he started, kind of telling himself, oh man, things are going better when I'm not here. And that's basically what kind of drove him into making those vacations even longer and longer, until there was, I think, a 3-month stint in Lake Tahoe that it was like, all right. And that was kind of the ribbon cutting of his retirement.
Nice.
Of, all right, he doesn't have to be there, and he's no longer managing the day-to-day. And we still leave him the fun stuff, the insurance renewals, and he's definitely kind of that high-level executive task doer nowadays. We
Right.
kind of give him those special projects to get done.
But the whole family's involved.
Whole family is involved now. My mother used to did run her own business and retired from that to come in, and she's just part-time, more so on the financial side, making sure that we're all keeping our nose clean on that side.
And you're married,
Yes.
have kids. Anybody involved in the business as well there?
No. Other than the kids always knowing with the Signarama logo and knowing the Signarama shirts. As of right now, obviously the kids are still in school, but Anna is a physician assistant. She was also a captain in the Army, and so she's another military person as well, on the officer side.
Let's share with the listeners exactly what do you do and how do you serve the business community?
We are a sign company, a static marketing company, and so we try to help people get new customers in through the door through effective signage. Be that either storefront building signs, window graphics, as well as interior lobby signs, just to make the feel of the office as people come in even better. But even with that, we try to work with the customer for what their visions are. There are some city regulations that we have to let customers know that, all right, we have to follow, because there are definitely some people that are just, they want the biggest sign that they can possibly get. And sometimes you do have to reel them in terms of what's realistic, what the city will approve of. But for the most part, we try to be the signage expert of, if you have a logo, we can find the best locations to get the most customers in, or at least the most eyeballs on there. Whether it is with a brick and mortar shop where you only have the storefront to work with, or if you've got a more what I call service industry that has service trucks that go around doing vehicle graphics, fleet graphics, and basically working with customers to try to get as many eyeballs on their business, because we don't do any digital, in terms of SEO, website, things like that. We do printing as well, business cards, brochures, and things like that. But that's why one of the things that we say is that it's static marketing. It's basically having a sign that's there that people can see, and that hopefully strikes a chord with some of their customers as they're going by and has them come in. That's really the effectiveness of signage, is to always be there so that when a customer realizes they have it, they see your sign, they see your phone number, and then it basically strikes them as, oh, I should call them. Or even as they're going by A-frame signage as well. a lot of sidewalk type stuff.
The site survey, however, that's what makes you and your business a bit different. Yes, we understand the big corporate companies that have a certain way of doing business, certain way of generating signage, who they work with, the vendors they work with, what they want their logo to look like, where it's placed, etc., etc. Then there's the smaller business owner. Could be a pretty good sized company, but it's still smaller in size. You do this site survey. I want you to walk us through that because I think that that is part of expressing your business and marketing your business. And why do people need what you do?
Well, going through the site survey, basically people find us through many different channels that we market ourselves, but we do try to sell the site survey. Being from that sales background, I like to have face-to-face with customers. I believe it's the most impactful way to, and really the only time is when someone says, oh, I've got all of this and I don't want a site survey, but generally we've trained our sales team now, who are mainly inside. I'm really the only one that goes out and does the site surveys, is to really sell it. We've heard through many of our clients that our competitors are very, I guess, hesitant to immediately go out and try getting a site survey. For me, especially if it's very local, I will go out to you because I believe that that gives us the strongest opportunity, A, for closing the deal, but B, just developing the relationship with the customer. That is what I like to do when we go out and do our site surveys. But there are also some of those corporate companies that we work with that know exactly what they want. They basically give us what they need. And even the warehouse type signage that we do as well, safety stuff. We get just asked of, hey, we need this particular sign and we don't want to order it online from someone in the East Coast that they don't know. From the sidewalk view to the building view to even inside of your lobby of all the different types of signage, and beyond that with the brochures of all the different types of signage, marketing materials that we do to help businesses have a good look. And once again, that's what that site survey is for, is to really get in there. Some customers have logos, some customers don't. Some customers' logos completely clash with the color of the building. Or even they're saying that they're going to repaint the interior lobby. And we have to know those colors because that's one thing about signage is it's all dependent on colors. And even there is a science to it. There are certain blues and greens and things like that that when lit up at night, the human eye for some reason just cannot see it as well at night as you can a red or a white. So you have to break that up with a, like a white border or something like that, that really only a signage expert would know, where a customer is just like, oh, I want this to be there. And you do try to educate them as much as you can about what can clash, because the one thing that is a nightmare for any sign professional is when you put up a great looking sign that you permitted, you think looks awesome, and then the customer just says, I'm not excited about it. And it is something that we try working with. We do artwork proofs. That's also what that site survey is for me to get an actual picture of the building. I take that picture back to my designer. He will do an artwork proof with your logo so that you can see exactly what it'll look like on the building. And sometimes we have to use that proof to almost tell the customer, you see, this isn't really going to work. And where do we want to go from here? Some people will put a background on their logo, and we'll try figuring something out to break up whatever is clashing with their lettering, their logo, just to make it more appealing visually, or even more impactful visually to get people in. For vehicle wraps, you only have about 4 seconds, they say, to get someone's attention on a vehicle wrap. So you don't want to be putting a paragraph or too much information on a vehicle wrap, even on a building sign, because you're really just trying to get people that are passing by, especially in today's car, culture, where you only have that very minimal amount of time. So we tell them that for certain signage, you want to put the most impact, logo, phone number, maybe a couple bullet points of what you do, and a tagline at most. If you want to get very detailed into the nitty-gritty of everything you do, that's more served for front window graphics. because people are walking by, or if you're getting a walk, people that have more time to read it. Like a static A-frame sign or something like that. There you can put a paragraph, you can be as detailed as you want, put your whole menu out there. But for a vehicle wrap, building signage, things like that, you want to be high impact, as big as you can with just that logo to really reinforce the brand. And that's kind of something that we do. Now, I've actually seen a little uptick in the Upland Chamber with some sign companies, but historically, in my last 12 years, other sign companies in the chamber, there aren't all that many, especially for how many, real estate agents or other professions where there's multiples. Like I said, other than a couple that pop up every once in a while, it seems to me that a lot of the network marketing here locally, I've got pretty good range in terms of where I can go and not having any competition really get in my way, just because it seems a lot of the people who started sign companies really loved the artistic side or the installation side. None of them got into it for the sales side. And so I think that's what separates us, is that relationship building, and even just having that training of making the customer feel like we're listening, we know exactly what they want, instead of, like I say, I don't want to speak too much for my competition, but a lot of them went into the sign business because they loved specific aspects of the sign business and not really sales. And that's where I think it kind of separates us from the rest, as we do develop a relationship. Our repeat customer base is extremely high.
The site survey, clearly, it's taking on a whole new meaning in my mind, how important it is. What about that guy who has his home-based business who really only cares about the wraps? What's the big deal? There is no site to survey. You're talking about the wraps. Apparently, or I believe, you truly do still spend time with that business owner, getting to know how they market their business. True?
Yes, most definitely. With vehicle wraps and even just vehicle graphics in itself, or even just somebody who knows exactly what they want and want to put that there, we still educate them. The great thing about vehicles is they can tell us the year, make, and model, and we have basically a what's it called?
Software.
A catalog that has all of those years, makes, and models, so our designer can then do the proof. And that is basically one thing that I think is great about our industry is, especially if you have a great designer like we do, is we can, as closely as possible without without actually having it really on the vehicle, is to really show the customer. I know it's only a 2D rendering, that's the thing, is that's not a 3D, but
Right.
It's a 2D rendering of what the sign will look like. The customer and the salesperson basically have to be in sync with what the customer finally wants, because really it's my responsibility to then relay that to our designer. Designer gives it back to me, I take a look at it, and I either give it a quality control check to make sure, okay, this is what the customer wanted, and then I'll let them see this. And then from there we go on to the revision process of what little tweaks and changes we want to make from there.
This is a whole process, including the permitting of the signage. These are things that most people, when they're just getting their business off the ground, they don't think about these things. They're trying to hit the ground running, just trying to get the next transaction. It sounds like you're truly part of their arsenal, their tool belt. Okay, this is how we're getting things started. Let's get the marketing piece put together for you on the signage. How helpful is that? That's awesome.
Yeah, no, we really want to help the customer, especially the small businesses, mom and pop shops that are trying to get up, because those are what we do a lot. Obviously, going down Foothill Boulevard, Arrow, all these little business parks that we have, that's what those are all mom and pop shops. And in our area, that's a lot of our business. The other thing that we also focus on is being that arsenal for those corporate companies. A lot of the warehouses where we're at, they need safety signage. And even some of those really high up corporate companies, the Fortune 50 type warehouses that are around here, they need safety signage changed out every month. And so we get with them to where they have their one stop, and that's where I say that we like to collect property managers and these big corporate companies and make sure that we are providing them with outstanding customer service. If you look on our stars on Yelp and Google, we're all 5 stars across the board with a lot of reviews as well. So it's not just one or two. It's, I believe on Google now we're approaching 100 reviews. On Yelp we're approaching 50, but we generally keep it as good as we can. Obviously in signs, because of color and things like that, there are issues that come up, and we do try to also have that wow factor of customer service after that with the team that we've put together now over the years.
That's a unique approach, because I hope the listeners hear this. You're part of marketing our businesses. That's what you do. At the same time, you're making sure that people know, oh no, we're 5-star. We get great reviews. As a business owner, when I'm out looking for signage, I usually think, okay, they come in and say, this is what I want. That may not necessarily be what I need. Your approach is to make sure that you get to know who I am, so you can help me figure out what I need as opposed to what I think I want. And then, who am I using? Well, I'm using a company that actually markets themselves. They're out there. And I think that that's very, very important. People don't think about that. People go, oh, well, I'm just going to run over to David because I like him. Well, of course, we all love you. However, you have great strength behind you because you have a business that is doing very well and thriving and getting those great ratings out there by your customer base. Okay, thriving is great. You wrapped up a season where we were locked up at home. It may not have been the best time for signage companies. You didn't collapse. Tell me what you did and how it came to be today that you're talking about expanding.
Yeah, nope. Well, during the pandemic, obviously with all of us, it was, I still remember that evening when when the governor basically said we're on lockdown, and it was an immediate phone call to all of our management employees, and we did make a very quick transition into we already had great relationships with property management companies around our area. And all of the buildings, you're talking Rankin, MGR, and even the others that are in our area, those are the ones that strike because those have the big buildings in our area, is we started to do the decals for the keep 6 feet apart. We have our own CNC router, so we started doing the clear plastic acrylic. I know there's a contention as to whether those were effective or not, but people wanted them at the time. And so we transitioned into the almost a pandemic signage support. All of these people needed these things. Cities were asking for the clear acrylic guards, the decals, the front door decals of wash your hands. And so we also looked out to either competitors or the other Signaramas nationwide in terms of what they were doing to get make sure that they weren't collapsing. Because yes, most definitely at that point in time, there were not a lot of people that were looking for, especially mom and pop shops, the smaller businesses here locally that were looking for new signage. But that's where I believe we really developed our relationships with the property management companies in the area. Because unfortunately, obviously, there were people that were going out of business. We were taking signs down and doing patch and paints, and so we were still had revenue. We were still staying afloat by property management and basically needing to keep buildings clean as people were moving out. Property managers still wanted those buildings to look attractive for new people to come in, and we were basically trying to work with, that's where we worked a lot with corporate companies because they still weren't really dying out, obviously, and property management companies. Really focused on that. And then even a lot of we started doing specials on those pandemic type signs, even for those mom and pop shops or middle-sized companies that just needed a front door graphic, because there were even those grants that were being brought by San Bernardino that said if you put this decal on your window, you can have, I believe it was that $2,500 grant or something like that. And we were even doing stickers for people for their certificates and putting those on the windows. So we were actually able to get kind of a COVID package together that did very well at that time. And I do think that really helped us. We did have a little bit of a downturn just in that year, as I'm sure almost everybody did, but it was not significant.
What a great pivot. Reinvention immediately.
Yes.
Okay, now you get to say you're growing. You did that pivot with fewer staff, true?
Yes.
Because you couldn't have everybody at work because of all the mandates. Now you brought everybody back, true or false?
True. Well, we did. We were at that time, because of all the COVID signage we were doing, listed as one of those businesses that could stay in operation.
Oh, nice.
So we were lucky with that because we could prove that we were providing a service in support with the general,
Right.
letting the public know how they can protect themselves. So luckily we did not. We did obviously have to do all the mask mandates and everything like that inside of the shop, but that is definitely one thing that helped us out is we did not need to drop any of our employees. At that point in time, though, we were still running lean and mean anyways, and so we didn't have a lot of employees. Not, I would say, a third of the time of what we have currently. We were definitely lucky that we did not have to completely shut down our shop for more than, I believe, the rest of that first week, because there was the immediate of where they told us that only specific businesses can stay in, and we read some fine print, read all these things, listened to the other sign companies in the area, and it was basically one of those that we all kind of were like, well, we are supporting this, and so they basically kept it to where we were able to maintain business operations.
You have the family-run business. Potentially, you're facing this pandemic. You're potentially maybe closing doors. You realize you have to pivot. You've got a wife who's on the front lines, and you've got to protect the kids. Family dinner sure sounds a little different during the pandemic for you. How was that, dealing with the fact that she was at work, dealing with this disease, this issue on a regular basis, and you're trying to keep everybody safe in the workplace and still take care of the kids? Who was homeschooling them at that time?
Well, at that time, a lot of falling back on grandma, and even my dad with that as well, since he was kind of getting into retirement. There were a few months in the very beginning where even Anna was doing telemeds, and basically just doing telemeds, having only to go in every once in a while, being that physician assistant, that their clinic actually was only operating at a very small amount. And so she was able to stay home quite a bit with the kids in the very beginning as well. But then when she started getting together, we did have to find, when finally they started releasing a little bit more of the daycare type of areas, is we immediately had to put the kids into those daycare situations, especially once Anna went back to work.
I'm happy to announce that Mr. Lamb is a board member. Yay!
Yeah.
Tell me, how has that chamber membership, you touched on it a little bit, how has it impacted your business, and how will you utilize it moving forward?
Obviously, with the chamber, you have to be involved. And so we made the commitment early on to go to the lunches, the breakfasts, and really try to promote our name, getting out there, bringing the little gifts if you need to, but really wanted to get in there to network. That's one thing that my father had instilled in me, and that's where he initially got started off with the sign company, was getting out there and being a part of the community. And that just came from the past, even joining associations. But the chamber has helped us out greatly because there were other sign companies that people knew of and used in the chamber. But once you start getting recognized as, all right, this guy is coming around, getting used to, even just having some comfortability with everybody, that's where you really start gaining traction. just like in any business, you're not going to really jump off unless you're in some other kind of, but you're not going to get going super fast right out of the door. So the chamber is, I believe, obviously extremely welcoming at first, but just like any networking group, they want to see some commitment back from you and some involvement because you're not just going to give business to somebody just because they joined the chamber.
Know, like, and trust.
Exactly. And so, no, we really wanted to use the chamber and not only for our own personal growth, but we've always enjoyed just the time going out there sponsoring the golf tournament. Is one of our major ones. The Tour de Foothills is another one of our major ones that we like to help the chamber with, and even giving them good signage. And usually the great thing about our sign industry is we're able to barter quite a bit with the chamber. So we feel like we're helping the chamber. They're showing us some exposure that we can get, and the chamber doesn't have to spend thousands of dollars on signs, and they can just let us enjoy the day, and we'll make the signs for them.
Okay. I have a couple questions for you. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Jeans or shorts?
Jeans.
Okay. Flip-flops or barefoot?
Flip-flops.
Tell me how many pairs of flip-flops you have.
Well, I mean, pairs that are actual workable pairs, probably about 3, but then I've got 5 that are, the toes are all the way down to the ground and everything like that. But yes, that is my shoe of choice. I've even been called crazy because I wear them in the wintertime up in the mountain areas and in snow. I must have great circulation down there because basically feet don't get cold for me. And so I've been told I can wear flip-flops at inappropriate events.
Spoken like the true giant. I must have great circulation down there because it's so much further down than the rest of us. My goodness. Boy, all sorts of flip-flops. And then, now let's talk about the drink of choice. We're all celebrating. And what are we drinking?
Grey Goose Dirty Martinis.
Okay.
Blue cheese olive in there as well.
Oh, wow, with a little twist. Where do you buy those?
I think you can get them most anywhere. At any kind of a cocktail store, yeah. There's even some of the liquors, but instead of a pimento in there, they fill it with blue cheese, and it really goes well with vodka.
When it's your turn to be the chair, we're going to have to make that your signature drink at your installation.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, thank you so very much. Tell us, if someone needs your services, how can they find you?
Well, they can definitely find us just by searching up Signarama Ontario off of Google, Yelp, any of those social media pages as well. But they can always reach us at our phone number at 909-975-4400. And our email address is a little bit long, but it's info@Signarama-ontarioca.com.
Thank you. That is fantastic information today. Is there anything else you want to add? Any parting thoughts you might have for the audience?
No, other than we really enjoy what we do. Like I say, I love doing the site surveys and helping out new businesses get started, as well as those introductions to property managers, corporate companies that need those monthly change-outs of signage.
Thank you so very much for spending some time with me. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.